Hi YouTube, it's Kathy and I'm here today to tell you about my TBR for Pride Bingo 2026. This is a brand new reading challenge started by my friend Wren over at the Reading Wren. You should check them out, they're great, they'll be linked down below. And this is a reading challenge that's going to take place over an entire year, so it starts on June 25th, 2026 and ends on June 24th, 2027. This is a bingo-based challenge. There are 25 squares on the board. I plan to read a book for every single one of them. One of the biggest rules for this challenge is you cannot use the same book for multiple challenges. And there are kind of two difficulty modes to this challenge. You can choose to do it just on easy, or you can go hard mode. And I'll tell you whether or not the books that I've picked for each of these challenges actually cover the hard mode challenge. Because some of them I was like, yeah, I can do that. And some of them I was like, I'm not even gonna bother finding a book that will do exactly that thing. I'm hardcore, but I'm not that hardcore. So without further ado, let's go into what the challenges are, whether or not I'm doing hard mode, and I'm not going to tell you too much about each of these books because there's 25 of them, I haven't read them yet, and I'm not going to read all of their synopses because I like to go into books without doing that. There is also a storygraph challenge for this, which I will also link down below, and it was kind of helpful for me for fulfilling some of these challenges, so it might be helpful for you as well. The first challenge is animal in a title, and the hard mode for this is the title doesn't start with a, an, or the. I just so happen to pick a book that fulfills hard mode, and that's Confessions of a Fox. This is actually something that's been on my TBR for years. I don't even remember what it's about. I just know every time I hear this title or see this book cover, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to read that, but I can't remember why. Next we have Doesn't Involve Coming Out, and the hard mode version of this challenge is a YA novel. I don't think I'm doing a hard mode for this one because I'm reading Someone to Build a Nest In, and I don't think it's YA, but this is another book that's been on my TBR for a while, and it's also a book that's on at least one quest I'm doing on Pagebound, if not multiple, so this was an easy one to add to my list. Next is a picture book, and the hard mode is to actually read 5 picture books that include different identities within the picture books. I'm just going to read And Tango Makes 3 because I've never actually gotten around to doing that, so I might as well finally do that. Next we have one word title, and the hard mode of this is to read a book that ends on an odd number of pages, and I don't know if I'm going to be fulfilling that part of it because I haven't looked up to see how long this book is, but for this one I'm going to read Trithardt. I saw that somebody else had put Daggerbound down as a book that would work for this challenge, and I've read T. Kingfisher before, so I'm pretty sure I know that this is going to have queer people in it. However, if for whatever reason Trithardt doesn't actually have queer people in it, but Daggerbound does, I also have access to Daggerbound, so I will just read that and then replace it in the challenge. If you don't happen to know, that's the first and then the second book in a series. Without that information, what I just said is probably confusing. The next challenge is to read something by an Aussie author. They don't have to currently be living in Australia, but they have to be from Australia. And the hard mode is a 5-star prediction. I think I want to predict this one as 5 stars just based on who the author is, because I'm going to be reading The Rules for Royalty. I've enjoyed everything I've ever read by Dietrich, so I'm pretty sure that counts for hard mode. Next we have new release, and the hard mode is to read it within the month that it's published, and I'm going to be reading Fabulous Bodies by Chuck Tingle. I already have the ARC, it comes out next month, I think I can get that done. The next challenge is outfit on the cover that you would wear, and the hard mode is to recreate the cover. I'm probably not going to do the hard mode, but I would definitely wear the dress on the front of the Princess Trap, which again is something I'm reading for a Pagebound challenge, so that was easy to slot in. For 8, we have to read something that has less than 1,000 ratings. And the hard mode of this is finding a book that's published at least 3 years ago, and I think that this one qualifies for that. I didn't actually look up the publication date, but I think it does. And that's Not Quite Hunter, which is one of the sequels in the Not Quite series. I read Not Quite Human this month for the Queer Lit Readathon, and I am planning on reading the other 5 novellas in the series. In fact, this is not the only book in the series that's going to pop up in this challenge. This one I had to look up if this actually qualifies, but the next challenge is an emotion in the title, and apparently in my searches, Sweet Bitter does come up as an emotion, so I'm reading Sweet Bitter Song. This again is another book that I had set aside for a Pagebound quest, so I'm just trying to be as efficient as possible. For hard mode, you're finding a book that has an award, but not a Goodreads Choice Award. I have no idea if this qualifies or not, I didn't look into it. For 10, you need to read something published in the decade you were born. For me, that's the 1980s. Thanks for making this challenging on me. I'm definitely not doing hard mode for this one because the hard mode version is the cover features at least 50% of your favorite color. My favorite color is yellow. The cover of this is mostly orange and black, and that's Zammy, A New Spelling of My Name. To my understanding, this is an autobiography or memoir of sorts by Audre Lorde. The next challenge is a book title with 5 or more words in the title, and the hard mode is if the cover has all of the colors for one of the many pride flags. I don't think I complete the hard mode version of this, but what I will be reading for it is The Most Unusual Haunting of Edgar Lovejoy, which again, for a page-bound challenge firstly, but then also for this. If this is one of the many flags, somebody let me know. For 12, we have main character has hobbies, and the hard mode is to attempt the same hobbies as that character. I don't know exactly what the hobbies are in this book, but the book is called Crafting for Sinners, so I just have to assume crafting will come up at some point. So if the craft that they're doing in the book actually seems interesting, I'll attempt hard mode, and if not, that's fine too. Prompt 13 is a BIPOC author, and the hard mode is an author that's been on your radar for at least a year. This one actually counts because I've been meaning to read this for ages, and I keep putting it off when it comes up as a hold because I'm right in the middle of other things and it's a fairly long audiobook. But that's The Spear Cuts Through Water. For 14, you're reading a manga, and if you're doing it on hard mode, it's not a boy love manga. I am doing this one on hard mode because I'll be picking up the first volume of Love Me for Who I Am, which has actually been recommended by Wren themselves, and I trust them because they know their manga. Number 15 is set in a different country, and the hard mode is it's written by a disabled author. I actually haven't looked up to see if this author does have a disability or not because I wasn't going that closely into things when I was picking things. I was just like, some of these are hard modes, some of these aren't, or they might be, I just haven't checked. But I'll be reading A Gentleman's Gentleman, and my understanding is this takes place in the UK, and I live in Canada, so this counts. If you happen to know if TJ Alexander has a disability, please let me know. For number 16, you're reading a final book in a series, and the hard mode version of this is a series that's at least 4 or more books long. This one is 6 books long. I've already talked about this series already because one of the other books was in there, but this one is Not Quite Whole, which is the 6th book in the series I already mentioned, the Not Quite series. Number 17 is a book mentioned in a 5 Friday video. There's a whole playlist that Wren has because sometimes they sit down and talk about 5 books on a topic, so I went through some of that playlist. And the hard mode version of this is an author you haven't heard of before, and because I found this in a video that I hadn't previously seen from that list, I think this counts because I've never heard of this author before, so I'll be reading The Other Boy, which is a book that Wren apparently loves, so I'm very excited to also probably love it. Number 18 is a nonfiction book, and the hard mode version of this is about a person or event you have no knowledge of. This one is very specific, so I think I qualify for hard mode. This one is called Before Gender: Lost Stories from Trans History 1850 to 1950. I think is what that says. The book cover is about this big in the story graph, and I can't click the link because I turned off my Wi-Fi so I wouldn't get dings while I'm doing this. Number 19 means we're moving into the identities portion of the bingo board, and that's lesbian. If you want to complete the hard mode, this has to be the first book that you read from the bingo board, and I'm not going to be doing that because I have some of these out from the library already, and I've got a hold on this one, but it's definitely not coming in anytime soon, and that's A Pirate's Life for Tea, which is the follow-up to Can't Spell Treason Without Tea, which I really loved this month. That means the next challenge is gay, so I'll be reading The Guncle Abroad, which is the follow-up to The Guncle. The hard mode version of this is to read a book written by a male author, which can be surprisingly hard to do, and in this case, I am doing hard mode. Next we have bisexual, so I will finally be reading Heated Rivalry. And the hard mode is a book that's over 400 pages. I haven't checked the page count on this one. Next we have transgender, and the hard mode is an adult book. I think that the one that I have picked is YA, and that's The Transition. I believe this is about a werewolf who's also trans, and I think there's hockey involved. It's something I put on hold a while ago, recently came in, and I was like, oh, this works. Next we have a book with an intersex main character, and the hard mode for this one is a new to you author, which I'm not fulfilling because I'll be reading Not Quite Beast, which is one of the books, again, in the Not Quite series. Because I haven't actually told you what this series is about, it's about a monster hunter who is intersex, and the first book got very, very steamy at some points. Next we have asexual or aromantic, and the hard mode is written by an indie or self-published author. I haven't actually looked up to see if this author is indie. I've read things by them before, so probably not. But I've decided to read Before I Let Go. And finally, the last challenge is non-binary drag or two-spirit, and for this one I'll be reading The Beautiful Something Else, which features a non-binary main character. The hard mode for this one is a book on someone else's Pride Bingo TBR. So if you want to read any of the books that I've mentioned and put them on your TBR specifically for this challenge, you go right ahead. So that's it for this challenge. Like I said, it's going to last an entire year, so I'm very excited to hopefully actually do this because I'm really good at being like, I'm gonna read all these books, and then I forget to check in on how I'm doing over the year. So wish me all the luck down in the comments below. On the way down in the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you're here, just leave me an emoji or smiley face if you happen to be on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that, as always, is down below. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I'll see you very soon. Bye!